Morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are, and welcome to the GV and NV Lite Series introductory webinar for the new 30 kilowatt smaller footprint transmitters from Nautel. I'm Chuck Kelly, and I'm joined today by Scott Marchand, our head of FM projects, and here we are again, Scott.
Yes, Chuck. Yeah, I'm getting. I always say I'm getting used to it. It's definitely becoming a habit.
This is pretty exciting. We've got a couple of new products in two different product lines, the GV30 and the NV30 Lite. Now, we had those products before, but now we've got them that are actually size reduced and made up with the right number of modules.
That's right. Yeah, I think most people will be very happy with the changes that we're now making available for them.
And so the things we're going to talk about today, we're going to introduce the GV30 and the NV30 Lite. We're going to do a little bit of a size comparison, give you an idea of the magnitude of the change we're talking about. We're going to actually get into a little bit of technical stuff and try to understand what made this possible, the 4.77 dB combiner, and let you explain that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the cost difference. And we're going to talk about the full complement of features that are in these machines. We're going to talk about the fact that we're not taking the GV30 and NV30 Lite off the market, the upgradable versions that are really 40 kilowatts, software limited to 30 kilowatts. We're going to take a little live tour, as is our custom on these webinars, and then we're going to take your questions. And to that point, on the right-hand side of your screen, presumably of the GoToWebinar application, you'll be able to see where you have the opportunity to enter questions into the webinar, and at the end of the webinar, we will be answering those questions. And we do very much appreciate your questions. Oftentimes, they add a lot to the webinar. So to give a little bit of background, the two product lines that we are adding to in this new product introduction are the NV Lite series, which goes from 3.5 to 40 kilowatts. And it is, I mean, the main things to know about the NV Lite series, it's a design of a transmitter for the first time in a long time, I think, in most any manufacturer that was really optimized for analog. It's the highest efficiency, up to 72% AC to RF. There's a no-compromise audio performance direct-to-digital exciter. It's designed for maximum redundancy and robustness, which is pretty much a hallmark, I think, of the Nautel product line. And then all the features that you have come to know and love in the VS and NV series, like the backup audio, the streaming audio, the push radio, live wire, MPX over AES, the RF and multiplex spectrum analyzer, Lisa-Ju display, logging, email notifications, Nautel phone home, and the fact that because of the fact that this was designed specifically as an analog box, the price is in line with older technology tube transmitters. And gosh, if you're making an investment today, with the difficulty people are having today in finding tubes, either new or rebuilt, it sure should be looking at solid state, I believe. This is the specifications of the NV family, and you'll note here that we have two versions of the NV30. There's the new version, which is 51 inches wide, and the upgradable version, which is the same as a 40, which is 66 inches wide. And you'll note that the efficiency is, slightly better as well. The upgradable 30 was 71% efficiency, and the new 30 kilowatt slimline, if I will, is 72%. Anything else you want to say about this, Scott?
No, I mean, we're going to get into the footprint considerations specifically, which I think is where you'll see some dramatic differences, of course. But yeah.
I think the main thing to notice here is the fact that we've gone from 16 modules down to 12.
Correct.
And that's what drives all the rest of this.
That's what made our slimline product, for sure.
Okay. And the other product line that is affected by all these changes is our brand new GV series, which is probably the fastest, most successful new launch of a product that we've ever had in the history of Nautel. And these are, again, 3.5 to 40 kilowatts, but they're digital. So you can do HD radio with them like no other transmitter. You can do DRM Plus with them. They have won all kinds of awards. We're pretty darn proud of the GV series.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about the 30 kilowatt, which is the focus of today's webinar, we're talking about both products, the NV Light series and the GV series. In the GV series, you have all of the same things that you've got in the NV Light series, and in addition, you have the highest HD performance in the industry, both in terms of power and efficiency. You have this new feature, simple site control, this new feature, the oscilloscope, new feature, spectrum efficiency optimizer, which is like artificial intelligence for a transmitter, where it monitors itself and says, well, I can drop my plate or my plate volts. I could drop my collector voltage or my drain voltage, there you go,
yeah,
a bit, and improve my efficiency, and I'd still meet the spectrum mask.
For me, this is probably one of the most exciting features.
It's a really cool thing, and it's almost surreal watching it do it. A lot of new features in the RDS world: PS scrolling, radio text, 25 positions in the alternate frequency table, things people have been asking for a long time. Backup LCD UI, 90 to 265 volt power supplies which stay on the air through brownout conditions. 110 volt UPS is now possible, and audio loss switchback, another thing people have been asking for some period of time. And here again are the specifications of both the new slimline GV as well as side by side with the upgradable GV30. So there's all the information you want to know about the GV30. So the first question you have to ask is, do you need more room in your site? People seem to be cramming more transmitters into transmitter sites, and they don't seem to be using the wall stretchers any, and they think the room stays the same size, and yet they're trying to put more in there. So this new 30 is 20% less footprint than its predecessor, and incidentally, it's 5% less footprint than one of our main competitors in this industry.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And the other thing that I don't know that people realize is the ceiling height. The new 30 kilowatt, in fact, the whole GV and NV Light series is 10 inches shorter than the Flexiva 30.
Yeah, it's a very tall box, if anyone has ever stood next to it.
Yep, and maybe that 10 inches is important in your transmitter building. I don't know. And our new 30 is 465 pounds lighter than the Flexiva, which should be easier on your back and shipping expenses, I guess. And again, it's 5% less footprint than brand G, shall I say. And it's less expensive. This is probably the slide everybody was waiting to see. The new 30 kilowatt average is $7,000 less expensive than the previously available version. So if you were buying an HD version comparing one-to-one, apples with apples, it's $7,000 less in the new 30 kilowatt version. But as I mentioned, there was a key piece of technology we had to come to, and that was a Broadside Hybrid coupler. Would you like to walk us through this very interesting combiner and why?
I will, because I mean this absolutely is related to what made this possible. Historically, when we only had the software limited version, we didn't have a 4.77 dB combiner, which I'll explain. But in simple terms, it allowed us to combine a 2/3 power transmitter with a 1/3 power transmitter. So just a brief overview of a Broadside Hybrid coupler. It's a 4-port device, provides exceptional isolation between all ports. The magic behind it is the internal strap spacing and width, which affects coupling ratio. And then, of course, based on the band of frequencies that you'd be operating in, the physical length has to be a quarter wavelength. Really, there's no limitation to what power ratios you can combine. The limitation comes down to just practical implementation. You have power to consider, physical size, and constraints and so on within the system. You know, and what we take advantage of is the fact that any phase or amplitude imbalances are dissipated in the reject port. And when we go to the next couple of slides, I will show very simply in simple arithmetic how that actually works. So hopefully people will be able to see it. And then the big thing
this is what everybody's familiar with, the 3 dB hybrid combiner.
Yeah, 3 dB, we know. And the other one thing, you know, how we got there, you know, we really did have to invest in some sophisticated modeling software to make this 4.77 dB combiner in the power level that we needed to make it a reality. So now we're going to look just simply, because a lot of people I think are familiar with a 3 dB hybrid combiner. We're going to look at the math really quickly. I've tried to simplify this as much as possible, so I'm going to take two 1-watt sources, transmitter A and transmitter B, and one thing I want to bring to your attention is that with a 3 dB hybrid coupler, the ratio, if you just take 3 dB divided by 10 inverse log, you get a ratio of 2. And that's important to understand because it kind of works into the the arithmetic at the output of these systems. So if we look at the top right-hand corner, we'll see the reject port. And the math is as simple as the voltage that is applied to the input on the A transmitter divided by the root of the ratio. So the ratio in this case is 2. And you have to take into account the phase angle of that voltage. And some people look at this in power and they can understand it, but you really have to look at this in voltage to get the proper numbers at the output. You also have to understand that there's a coupled port and a through port. You see in the middle of the box that I have here that the minus 90 degree port in this case for the reject port is the through port. There's 90 degrees of lag, and that is accounted for in the second term of the reject formula, which is the voltage of the B transmitter divided by the ratio over the ratio minus 1, the square root of that. And you'll see that's where the phase comes into play. So the original voltage phase of transmitter B had to be 90 degrees lagging of the voltage at the A port. When you look at the reject port, you get minus 90, minus 90, that's the lag. So you actually get VA over the root R 0 plus a minus 180 degrees. So they actually cancel as long as the amplitude and the phase are not out of balance. If the amplitude is out of balance, of course they're not going to cancel perfectly, and if the phase is slightly out of quadrature or 90 degrees, they also won't cancel perfectly.
And that's when we get power into the reject load.
Loss of efficiency at the system level. So our systems obviously are optimized to balance amplitude and balance phase.
And we're actually monitoring the power in the reject load.
That's right.
And everything
that
else.
is an available meter on the system. So, and then if we look, that's the reject port. So that's very easy to see how imbalances can result in power. In this example, you have 1 watt and 1 watt, and the signals are in quadrature with each other, so you'd actually have 0 watts of reject power. So now we look at the combined port, the output port, and this is the point where you see VB, the voltage of the B transmitter, divided by the ratio. Again, relative to the output port, VB, the transmitter B signal, is coupled over, and that's why it's divided by the root R ratio. It's minus 90 initial phase plus the amplitude of the A transmitter divided by the root of ratio over ratio minus 1. But you'll note that it also has the 90 degree lag applied to it, so it becomes VA at minus 90 degrees. When you add them, you get 10 volts at minus 90 degrees, which is 2 watts.
Right.
So I took 2 1-watt transmitters and I combined them into 2 watts.
And you had
so
nothing going into the reject load, at least mathematically.
Right.
Okay.
Now we get into the 4.77 dB hybrid coupler, and it's very much the same. If you look at the formulas, they're identical. Just the difference is the ratio. So now with a 4.77 dB ratio, you've got a ratio of 3. You have to have a 2/3 port on the 0 input and a 1/3 power on the minus 90 input. And if you do that and you have the power and the phase oriented correctly at the inputs, you will get the same net output. You'll get 0 watts reject. I won't go through the math again. And you get 0 watts reject. And in this case, you'll actually get 3 watts total output. So it's actually pretty simple.
And this is important because the modules in the GV series are 2.5 kilowatts. There's 4 of them per 10 kilowatt block. And so we have 3 10-kilowatt blocks. 2 of them are combined.
We combine 2 for 20 and then combine the 20 with the remaining 10 to get our 33.
Very cool. Thank you for that. Cost of operation. Just to say overall that if we're comparing with the old MV series, which was pretty much the standard in our industry, in our product line, you're up to 15% more efficient with the GV series in general, and so there's just so many benefits to that: less temperature rise, cool operation, and so many other things that come out of it. But you can save serious bucks, $16,000 a year, up to on a 40 kilowatt with the GV series as opposed to the previous technology. It's important to say that the upgradable 30 kilowatt version is still available. We're not taking it off the market. We're adding a U at the end and saying it's the upgradable version, either for the NV Lite 30 or the GV30, and they are in essence 40 kilowatt transmitters that are artificially limited in power by the CPU system. It allows you to future-proof your system for HD or antenna changes, lets your transmitter loaf along, and at any time in the future you can order the upgrade, and it's basically the difference in price between the 40 that you would have bought and the 30 that you did buy, and it can be done remotely by Nautel engineers, so you don't incur a lot of extra cost. And this may be very valuable if you're not quite sure what power level you're going to need for HD, what injection levels you're going to use, whether you're going to change towers and need a little bit more power because you don't have as many antenna bays, whatever. It can be very, very helpful to you. And I think it's very important to understand we're keeping the 30 around. Yeah. And it's all backed with the best support in the industry. We can't talk enough about our 4-year standard warranty, the stable of guys that we've got in customer service, the 24/7, 365 support. Nautel Phone Home, the leader in the industry in terms of proactive service and support. The fact that we've never discontinued support on any product in our entire 45 years, and Nautel continuous improvement. Let me ask you, Scott, and let's put you on the spot here for a second, because the whole concept of Nautel continuous improvement is not just are we developing new cool products, but we're also looking for ways to bring the new ideas and the new products to previous transmitter purchasers of various kinds. And for instance, there's a large stable of new really cool features we talked about in the GV. What's the possibility that those features are going to make it back into NV Lite, which shares a similar platform, and to the point that people could actually take advantage of the new features of the GV in the NV Lite?
Yeah, it's absolutely a certainty. It's something we're working on right now. We expect to have a release in software available for NV Lite somewhere in the November timeframe.
Great. Great. And one more thing I should talk about. What else is cool that happens in the November time frame?
Well, the compact GV30 and NV30 Lite will be available.
That's awesome. So it isn't too far out. You know, this is not vaporware.
No, it's hard to believe it's October already. Actually.
It is. It is. The leaves are changing. I mentioned Nautel Phone Home. This is a global transmitting monitoring solution, which is an opt-in service. You have to physically turn it on, but when you do, it allows your transmitter to communicate with a server here at Nautel and allow us to track what's going on. And if you call in with a problem with your transmitter, we can already see the readings. We can already help you, which is obviously a huge advantage. Let's talk about the advanced user interface. Now, we've always done this, but I'm going to try to do it again. I'm going to try to go online live, and live radio is always the most fun. But we're going to go live to a GV series. Now, this is not a 30. The 30 is otherwise in use in testing process at this moment, but this is a GV series with a lot of the new features, and maybe you'd like to just walk. What's this new one up here, Scott, the oscilloscope?
Yeah, this is the oscilloscope. Now, I will tell those with a trained eye that what we're broadcasting right now is bandwidth limited noise.
Is that different than most radio stations?
Yeah, most guys aren't going to think
that's the format, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah, so this is just there to demonstrate, though, that in this case the signal in the time domain.
So this is showing right now audio INQ in the time domain, but we could for instance switch it to something else. We could look at left and radio, for instance, and that'll be interesting, I suspect.
Yeah, no, this is not on the left and right inputs.
Oh, I see. That's right. You're feeding with INQ, aren't you? Or
yeah, it's the MPX
composite. Okay, so we'll go in there. Look at that. All right, so that's, okay, interesting. All right, so let's talk about one of the other major new features in this thing is the simple site control, and that's
right.
here.
So this looks a lot different from when we first demonstrated it.
Yeah.
And I believe we have a webinar scheduled for a couple of weeks where we'll go into more detail.
A lot more.
But this has come a long way, and I'm pretty pleased with how it looks and how easy it is to use.
And you can see some. We're not going to go into great detail and configure up all these things, but you can see some examples of what our test engineers have been putting in this transmitter to test that it is doing what we want to do.
Yeah.
And let's also talk about for a second the new RDS features, and that's off at the moment. We can turn it on. So we now have
scroll down to the scrolling portion.
Scrolling PS name, scrolling type, radio text, and of course you can feed it the dynamic data in a number of different ways.
Serially over IP.
Yep. So the other thing that I think is interesting is to come over here to main audio and see how the audio backup works. So right now we're being fed with multiplex, but we could have another audio source configured as a backup.
That's right.
And it can automatically switch back.
Right. In the event the MPX would fail, it would automatically switch over to the, in this case, analog left and right. And if the MPX would recover, it would switch back. So
after a period of time.
After a period of time.
Okay, very good. So that's a basic. Anything else that I should show in here?
I don't think anything in here, actually.
Okay.
But we'll go into more detail and make sure we cover everything
in the next webinar. Do check your emails for an invitation to the next webinar talking about software version 4.1.
That's right.
For the GV, and coming soon to your NV Lite. Okay, so anything more you want to discuss on the GV before we go out of this?
I don't think so. No, not from an AUI standpoint.
Okay, very good. We'll come back to here then, and F5, and move on. So to summarize the GV30 and the NV Lite 30, it's smaller, lighter, less expensive, and even more efficient. And it's packed with all the same innovative new features that you've come to expect from Nautel, and it comes with Nautel continuous improvement, and other products within our line continue to improve as a result of the new developments that have happened in the GV. So, having said that then, I do want to let you know that you can stay in touch. There's lots of ways to learn more. Oh, what is airflow? Says Mike.
Yeah, it's approximately 3/4 that of the current NV30 Lite.
But the heat load would be approximately the same.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just the volume of air would be 3/4, or
correct.
Yeah, 3/4 of it. Thank you for the question, Mike.
So 2400 CFM, I believe.
Very good, off the top of your head. The places to find more information, and there's another one here. Let's see here. Is the NV Lite series strictly analog? It's not HD adaptable. That's correct.
Correct.
The NV Lite series is designed as an analog and optimized as an analog transmitter. So it's, if you think you may be wanting to go with digital, you need to get the GV series. And thank you for that email, Scott, or that message, Scott. There are various places to get information about Nautel products, including our Nautel Waves newsletter. Please sign up for that. All of our webinars are online and available, recorded. You can watch them anytime. We have those also up on YouTube. And you can check out the Nautel store. If you need parts or anything else, you can check out the Nautel store. Do remember the live help option, and our YouTube channel, and our Facebook channel, and our LinkedIn channel. We're all the places at social media. And these are where you can send questions to any one of us in the Nautel sales team. There's a new note at the bottom I wanted you to notice. Remember that the completion of a Nautel webinar qualifies you for half of an SBE recertification credit identified under Category 1 of the recertification schedule for SBE certification. So please do take advantage of that. And you can go back and look at the existing webinars, and there's probably 20-30 of them up on our webpage, and that can get you a reasonable number of credits. There's a question here: is the efficiency of the compact GV30 better on 10? On -10.
No, they're approximately the same, mostly because of the spectrum efficiency optimizer on the upgradable version. The volts
it's
are
already
able to
optimized
turn down,
yeah,
and therefore get back to the efficiency that you'd see on the compact version.
Thank you for that, Dave. Let's see if there's any other questions here before I go away. It doesn't look. Oops, there's one more. What is the Nautel pathway to get iBox Gen 4? Well, we've already been releasing the key features that are part of Generation 4. The main things, the PAPR improvement is already been a feature of the Nautel transmitters for quite some period of time, and virtually all the other key features of Gen 4 are already in our product. And in fact, they're better than our tests have proven to be so far with the standard off-the-shelf product. So we are a signatory to Gen 4, and we'll use those features as we deem necessary. So that's the questions that we have for today. Thank you all for participating. It's a short webinar today. Hopefully you still have time for your lunch or breakfast or dinner or whatever you're looking for. Scott, thank you so much for being a part of the webinar. Have yourself a good day. Thanks for being with us.